ladies and gentlemen, to Longbox Chronicles Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm checking out an animated film from 1980. That movie is Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. Now, a little bit of backstory, and I should mention that this backstory is the only thing I know about this fucking movie, is that in the late 1970s, Stan Lee took a trip overseas to try to get a handful of Marvel properties potentially turned into TV shows or movies. And one of his stops was to the Japanese studio Toei, who decided to take a couple of Marvel properties and do a few things with them. One thing that Toei did was the now legendary Spider-Man live-action series, the one that kind of sort of gave birth to the entire tokusatsu genre. The other thing which they did was they made this movie, which is based on Marvel's Tomb of Dracula comics. I wish I could tell you much about the Tomb of Dracula as a comic. The only things I know is that, well, Dracula's in it, duh, and that's where the character Blade first showed up, because Blade was a vampire hunter hunting down Dracula. I don't know anything else about the comic. I don't know if this I don't know if this movie's based on any specific story arc from the books or any of that shit. I have no idea. I don't even know what the plot to this thing is outside of, again, I'm taking a wild shot here that Dracula's involved somehow. I have no idea if this thing is any good at all. The only way I'm going to find out, guys, if this thing is even halfway decent is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. You know, guys, you would think I'd be used to bad English dubs by this point, but there is something exceptionally awful about this fucking dub, and I was expecting a little bit better, because this was dubbed by Harmony fucking Gold, and Harmony Gold is usually pretty decent. This? No, this is fucking awful. So Dracula's got a son. How exactly does that... Okay, this is just sort of a thing when it comes to vampire, like, biology. If a vampire is not really alive, and there's no blood flow, there's none of that, how can they have sex? How do they produce sperm if they're not really alive? How the fuck does Dracula have a son? I'm sorry, guys. It's just something that's been sort of bugging me for, like, a long time. Because I see so much vampire fiction where, oh, Dracula's got a kid, or this vampire's got a child. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. If you're dead and there's no... Or, well, if you're undead and there's no blood flow, your organs aren't functioning, you're probably not producing sperm. I understand, guys, that it's paltry, it's stupid, it's trivial, but it's something that has bugged me for a long time, and the fact that Dracula has a son apparently is a plot point in this film. So it's gonna bother me a little bit more because it seems a little bit important. Well, it's good to see that she cared so much about her son that she couldn't spell peace correctly on his tombstone. But no, yes, Janus can totally rest in fucking P. That makes absolute sense. God, I love hilarious misspellings like that in Japanese projects, guys. It's just fucking hilarious. Guys, I really wish I could tell you what the fuck is going on in this movie, but I have no fucking clue. It stopped making sense about 15 minutes ago, and it's been pure batshit ever since. The worst part is when this thing is done, I'm gonna have to try to explain this shit. And I'm at a loss for words as to what to even try to fucking say. I'm kind of hoping that within the last, 20 minutes or so, this movie starts to make a little bit more sense and all this shit gets brought together in some sensible fashion. But right now, I really don't see that fucking happening. Well, guys, that was Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, and, that just... No, I'm gonna shut... Wow, okay. Let me just try to put a nice little short summary on this. The first half of the film is fine. It actually makes a little bit of sense. It's the moment that Dracula's son dies that the film takes a hard banking turn right into the deepest, darkest heart of batshit country. And it stays there. It stays there for the fucking duration. And it actually makes the movie hilarious, even though it wasn't intending to. Let me try to explain. Let me go over a little bit of the plot without giving away too much. So, it starts with Dracula going to Boston because apparently he's sick and tired of Europeans constantly trying to kill him, and America just doesn't give a shit about vampires. At least according to the dub, that was his reasoning for going to Boston. So he notices this cult of it's like the satanic cult of the Black Mass, who offer a bride to Satan on a friggin' altar with a Star of David on it. I didn't know that the Star of David was a satanic symbol. I always thought that the pentagram was a bit more of a satanic thing, but oh well, I'm not gonna let that bother me too much. So Dracula crashes in, posing as Satan, and he flies off with with Satan's, I guess, appointed bride, Dolores. And he falls madly in love with her, so he can't drain her blood, but he can totally drain the blood of women who look exactly like her, because fuck you, that's why. Their love, which is never fully really explained in the film, leads to them having a son, Janus, who is then shot and killed by a member of the cult of the Black Mass under Satan's orders. And here's where the film gets weird. So the Kingdom of Heaven, or God, or some such stupid shit, decides to resurrect Dracula's baby son, his newborn son Janus, and rapid age him into a 20-something in superhero tights. No, I don't fully understand why. Dracula sees that as heaven trying to fuck with him, because now his son has the powers of heaven, which then contradict Dracula's powers of darkness and evil, and so now his son is just a tool to kill him, which causes Dracula to flee to New York, where he just a lot of other weird shit happened, guys. Like, at one point, Dracula and his wife are in hell, and Dolores unleashes these special heaven powers that she apparently had this whole fucking time, and she zaps Satan in the eyes, so Satan takes away Dracula's powers, and so Dracula is now mortal, until he goes back to his castle, when suddenly he's a vampire again, because fuck you, that's why. No, actually what they try to say is that the air in his castle makes him a vampire again, so, because fuck you, that's fucking why. Just nothing makes sense from the moment that Janus is shot halfway through. The moment that Dracula's child is killed, nothing makes sense. Right? The writing is a fucking mess. What I find kind of weird, though, and this is brought up once, and it's never made a real plot point, is that one of our vampire hunters, Frank, is a biological descendant of Dracula. And when I say that, I mean he's a biological descendant of Vlad fucking Tepes, the man who becomes Dracula. Apparently, Harker and Van Helsing's daughter, or granddaughter, some such shit, are able to, like, trace his family lineage all the way back to Vlad fucking Tepes, and so Frank fucking Drake is actually part of Dracula's bloodline, and da-da-da-da-da, so on and so forth. But that's never brought up. It's like Dracula is so hell-bent on this son who apparently now he can't even look at because of the whole heaven thing. But he has another descendant over here who's trying to kill him because $100,000 check. You know, that's... No, guys, seriously. He's trying to kill his own biological ancestor because he's being paid $100,000. I don't know if that's just like a one-time payment or if it's like a weekly thing. It's never really explained. Just a lot of the shit in this movie, guys, makes no sense. The writing also leads to a shitload of just plot holes and problems. For instance, they play up real heavily at one point that Dracula has this weakness to crosses, crucifixes, and that is part of the traditional vampire lore. So when him and his wife go back to the cult of the Black Mass's church, in this trap, or rather when he goes, no, wait, it is both of them go there, so on and so forth. The church, or the cult, knowing that Dracula's weak to crosses, has all these steel shutters that just drop over every single window, so now he is surrounded by crucifixes, and it really fucks with him real bad. And then when his son dies, he's at a cemetery, and every gravestone either has a giant crucifix sitting on top of the stone, or crucifixes are clearly carved into every goddamn stone. Dracula doesn't react to that in the fucking slightest. When our vampire hunters, amongst the crew, includes a dog who has a giant gold cross hanging off its fucking collar, Dracula doesn't fucking react to that fucking cross either. Now, while he doesn't react to crosses then, when he still has his vampiric powers, and by all rights should have been weakened or impacted or affected by all those fucking crosses, when he loses his vampiric powers, and towards the end of the film, he has to ward off a bunch of vampires by grabbing a gold cross, which burns in his hands. Even though he no longer has these vampiric powers, he's 100% mortal, the cross burns in his fucking hand as he's, like, warding off all these, like, zombie vampire things. It doesn't make any sense. And, guys, there are weird little plot holes and issues like that throughout the entire film, from start to finish. So, I am just pointing out the biggest one that stood out to me. I also don't quite understand Janice's one visible power when he and Dracula have their big fucking showdown around the halfway point of the film, when Janice has been brought back from the dead and is now like a 20-something in blue and white superhero tights. He apparently has like this like heaven fucking vision, which I guess is like the heavenly version of Ghost Rider's penance fucking stare. Except instead of showing people dark, horrible, evil it's just this bright yellow ray of light that apparently is all heaven, like heaven, is all like heavenly charged, and kind of fucks with Dracula a little bit. And then Dracula announces that Janice has his powers, but Dracula never showed that power anywhere in the movie. I didn't know Dracula had hell vision, and Janice apparently has the polar opposite, because fuck you, heaven. Just nothing in this film, guys, makes a lick of sense. And I literally, for the past, like, 40 minutes of the film, for the last 40 minutes, I constantly sat there going, what the fuck is going on? Why the hell is Dracula trying to become a vampire by being bit by another vampire? Even though that would then make him vastly weaker because of the whole vampire hierarchy thing, so on, so forth. You know, and why exactly, and by the way, every single time that he tries that, like every time he tries to find another vampire to bite him and turn him, that totally backfires on him every single time, because apparently Dracula's a massive douchebag who's fucked over every other vampire he's ever come in contact with, which is certainly fucking hilarious. I loved that. But yeah, guys, the story here, it doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. Harker is confined to a wheelchair this entire goddamn film until the final act, when he squares off with Dracula one-on-one in Dracula's castle. Then, first thing he does is he springs out of his wheelchair like there's nothing wrong with him at all. I didn't fully understand that, or why the spokes of the wheels on his wheelchair are made of pure silver. I guess because he can just tear them off and stab Dracula in the chest, because reasons. Look, guys, I cannot in any logical way attempt to explain the writing in this thing and have it make any level of sense, because it doesn't make sense. This is complete and total insanity for 90 minutes, and even the moments that kind of make sense are brought down by logical fucking plot holes, or just goofy fucking dialogue that just doesn't friggin' work, or shit that they bring up and then go nowhere with. This thing, guys, is a fucking car wreck in terms of writing. However, that honestly is almost a charming element of this, is that it is so stupid, it is so brain dead, that you are going to find yourself smiling and laughing at it the whole time. Part of that, I think, also has to do with the voice acting, because yes, guys, I watched the dub of this thing, and the dub is hilariously terrible. We have everything from voices that in no way match the character speaking. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I want you to imagine my voice only a little bit higher pitched and just kind of sort of raspy. So I'm talking something around here. This is the voice that... No, actually, it's not even that raspy. It actually is just sort of up here, kind of, and this is sort of the voice that they gave to Satan. Satan, who's big and muscular and has giant horns. Satan sounds kind of like this. Dracula just sounds... Okay, Dracula, when he isn't shouting and screaming and carrying on like a psycho... He sounds incredibly bored. In fact, most of our cast sounds horrendously bored as they are reading off these lines, which I'm going to tell you right now, when you're listening to some of the most insane dialogue ever committed to film, and you're reading it the same way that you would fucking read the way that one would read the morning fucking news on a slow news day, it just makes everything all the more surreal and odd, and it kind of helps. This movie would probably have been a horrible detriment to this film if the voice acting was good. The fact that the voice acting is just everywhere on the wooden and dead-eyed to the hammy and crazy spectrum. It hits both ends, oftentimes within the same scene with the same actor inside of the same line, which is, again, nothing short of a biblical miracle that you can pull that kind of shit off. It really does sort of help. It really helps kind of sort of enhance just the insanity that this movie brings. Animation. I've seen a lot of Japanese animated films. Fuck, I've covered a ton of them for this series. And I know that back in the late 70s and early 80s, Japanese animation had a bad habit of being incredibly cheap. This is a really good example of that. We have constantly, and I mean constantly, recycled animation. There are a handful of characters who just look incredibly ugly in terms of how they were drawn, and their faces kind of like wiggle and move in odd ways as they're actually being, animated. Mind you, that is usually like background characters and secondary characters. It's never anybody you follow for more than 30 seconds. But still, that is kind of worth, mentioning. Mouth mouth movements. I am not guys expecting mouth movements to be ultra detailed, but just what's here, in many cases, the mouth is barely moving at all. And I guess as a cost-cutting measure, the head of the cult of the Black Mass, whenever they're doing a ceremony, wears this giant, face mask that has no movement at all. So he can just talk, and the only thing which they have to do is they have to just jiggle the fucking mask around to make it actually look like his jaw is moving. And even then, they rarely, if ever, actually move the mask. Just the whole thing is just sheer laziness, guys, in terms of animation. Which once more, I can say that just the sheer laziness and just the weird feel of the whole film does help enhance the absolutely fucking surreal nature of the story and the script. So, while normally I'd be able to bitch about this kind of sub-fucking standard garbage, here it almost kind of works in a demented sort of way. Our sound mix here is fine. There's nothing ultimately special about the sound mix. Our soundtrack, our score is fine. There's, once more, nothing ultimately special there. Really, guys, this whole thing boils down to a script that makes zero fucking sense, voice acting that hits both fucking bad ends of the fucking acting spectrum, and animation that is painfully cheap. And with all of those factors all kind of sort of converging into one little ball of hellish, weird, fucked up shit, I can actually kind of recommend this movie for no other reason than to just laugh at how crazy and stupid the whole thing is. And luckily, the entire movie is available on YouTube. The only thing you gotta do is just do a search for the movie's title, and you'll totally find Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned on YouTube. By all means, watch it. You almost have to watch it just simply to see how crazy this shit is. And I highly recommend that you watch it in groups, so that way you have a bunch of friends who can all laugh at the same god-awful thing that you yourself are watching. I honestly had a fun time watching it solo. I have a strong feeling that if you're watching it with, friends, you probably have like a couple of beers or like some other shit going on, then you'll probably have even more fun just absolutely riffing on this film. To watch this thing as a serious film, fuck no, the movie is awful. But if you're just looking at a bad movie to just totally fucking laugh at, by all means. Now, if this thing was available on DVD, would I be able to recommend a purchase? No, I would not even recommend it as a purchase to fucking laugh at. This movie is interesting and it's different, but it's not interesting enough to actually warrant the purchase. So, thankfully, it's not available on DVD, and thankfully, it is available for free on YouTube. So, by all means, guys, search for it, look for it, laugh at it. But I do have to warn you: do not go into it expecting any level of fucking quality. Holy shit, was this ever fucking bad. Just wow. I'm still trying to make sense of some of the scenes, guys. That's holy shit. Alright, I'm gonna go find a different vampire film to watch, because I need to cleanse my palate a little bit. I think I'll go watch From Dusk Till Dawn, because I know that movie's halfway decent. At least that movie makes some level of sense and has acting that's good, and it's not Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, and that all by itself is enough of a positive for me. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.